Welcome. If you're here, it's because you accepted the invitation to a free course with 3 classes because you want to know the strategies that hundreds of men and women are using to communicate assertively. This course is going to help you to achieve success first in your personal life and also to obtain an intelligent internal dialogue. Those are the thoughts that we hear all the time in our head. And if we can obtain an intelligent internal dialogue, it leads us to be successful in our family and in our professional lives. We're so happy that you're here, and we want you to know that these 3 classes are made with dedication so you can begin to improve all aspects of communication with those around you. I remind you, please give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to our channel, activate the notification bell so when we upload the next few classes, you'll be alerted right away. Everything we make is and upload is made with love and respect so that you can take full advantage of the content and enjoy it. And if there's anything that you hear that you think someone else could benefit from, please feel free to share this video with them so that we can all begin to strengthen our family ties through good communication. Effective communication is best practiced at home with the family because improving our personal relationships and learning how to resolve conflicts constructively by fostering an environment of mutual support and working together as a team is what we all long for. Also, good communication can help the family to achieve their financial goals. Yes, in fact, when we're working with the family, we need to attend to several aspects, the most important being the spiritual aspect and the emotional aspect. But you will also have the skills that will affect the material aspect. You're going to discover how assertive communication can directly affect you materially, and it can affect your ability to achieve your financial goals. I'm going to say that again. Assertive communication can directly influence your ability to achieve your financial goals. You're going to learn how to express yourself confidently with clarity. That's going to help you to negotiate better, even on the job, to ask for a raise, perhaps make promotions, and making informed financial decisions. This is the key, and everything I have just mentioned has to do with good communication. So let's start with class number 1. First, let's define communication. Communication is a fundamental skill that defines much of our interactions and relationships. Through it, we transmit thoughts, emotions, information, and experiences. And in this class, we're going to explore the importance of communication as a unique gift that allows us to connect with others, understand each other, and build meaningful ties. This encompasses all fields of our life because we're integral beings. So everything is connected. One part of our lives affects the other part of our lives. Communication has pillars, and these basic pillars are fundamental elements that support the effective transmission of messages between individuals. That's what it is. Communication is a transmission of messages from one person to the other, and they should be transmitted as clearly and accurately as possible. So, the 2 main pillars of communication, you probably already know it, are verbal communication and nonverbal communication. Verbal communication refers to the use of words and language to convey messages. That includes the content of what is said, the actual words, the structure of our sentences, the tone of voice, the intonation, and rhythm. And when we carefully choose what we're going to say, using the appropriate words and intonation are crucial because this avoids misunderstandings and it also allows us to communicate the message effectively. And that's what we want in every field of our life, at home, at the job, with our friends, right? Some people finish their thoughts with, does that make sense? Or do you understand? Why are they doing that? They want to know that they were able to transmit the message effectively. It's all about what we say and how we say it. Both aspects are crucial to achieve a communication that's actually effective, and we avoid so many misunderstandings. Let me give you an example of intonation. Notice these 3 examples with the word hello. You say hello. That obviously means I'm happy to see you. You say hello to someone that arrives a half hour late to a meeting, or hello to a classroom of 3-year-olds. It's the same word, but doesn't the intonation transmit a totally different message each time? So here's a more detailed explanation about the importance of good communication. The information and ideas we're trying to transmit to the other person have to be clear to the receiver because there's a giver of the information and then there's a receiver. And that is, we have to use words that are precise, clear, and relevant so that the information will arrive effectively. A careful choice of words can help avoid confusion. And this ensures that the message is interpreted correctly by the receiver. That's why speaking calmly is important, especially when there are big decisions to be made at home. We start by transmitting clear and precise ideas to our spouses, our children, perhaps extended family that we live with. And this is a good practice for us. So then when we go out to the real world, the outside world, I should say, we can transmit information in the best way to others. The other aspect we're talking about is how to say it. So the way the message is presented is influenced by elements such as tone of voice, elements of verbal communication. We've talked about intonation, rhythm can completely change the meaning of the message. For example, the same phrase said in a friendly tone of voice can sound like a compliment, while that same expression can be said with a sarcastic tone of voice and it can be taken as a criticism. All of these elements are important. For example, the tone of voice can indicate emotions and attitudes such as happiness, sadness, or anger. So let's talk about rhythm and speed, another aspect to take into account. A fast pace of us speaking can indicate excitement or anxiety, while a slower pace can communicate calm. The right combination of what is said and how it is said is key to achieving effective communication and avoiding misunderstandings. We have to be aware that these elements will help us transmit the messages in a clear, more empathetic way, improving our relationship with others. And that also gives us security. That's why we like to start with the family. In this class, you'll understand that your internal dialogue, again, that inner voice that tells us so much during the day, is fulfilling all that we are learning in these classes. So then it's simple to externalize it. The way you communicate with yourself is a good way to be able to improve your communication with others. So, how are we going to communicate with others? Well, let's talk now about nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication encompasses all the signals and gestures that accompany communication. Verbal communication includes facial expressions, body movements, hand gestures, postures, and eye contact. The nonverbal communication signals can have a very significant impact on how the message is perceived and interpreted. For example, a smile can indicate kindness and approval, while a closed stance can signal resistance and disagreement through gestures and expressions. Facial expressions, postures, and other visual signs transmit information and emotions that complement, even surpass the verbal content of our message. That's why it's so important that we give attention to the nonverbal communication. Let's talk in part about facial expressions. Our facial expressions are fundamental in communication and are largely universal. What it means in certain parts of the world, it also can mean the same thing in another part of the planet. Like smiling, it indicates happiness no matter where we go. A frown shows we're upset, and they're recognizable in different cultures. Another element are gestures and body movements of the hands, arms, and body. In general, can all add context and emphasis to our words. Here we could say that pointing towards something, shaking our head, shrugging our shoulders can transmit additional information or confirm that we're being understood, that we're understanding what we're being told. And expressing the third element would be the posture and position of the body. The way in which we place our hands and the posture we adopt when we're speaking also communicates messages. An open posture can indicate confidence and willingness to communicate, while a closed posture could suggest reserve or show that we want to defend ourselves from a situation that we're seeing as threatening. The fourth element is eye contact. It's a powerful aspect of nonverbal communication. Maintaining eye contact can show interest and engagement in the conversation. It can even convey that you're trustworthy. However, the duration and the type of eye contact may vary depending on the culture and the context. In some cultures, it's a total lack of respect if a person who looks me and my eyes lingers. It's disrespectful to do that. So if you're a person that travels on vacation or for work, it will be good to research a little bit just to make sure that we're communicating in the proper way with that culture that we'll be visiting. The fifth element is proximity. Physical distance between people is also part of communication. Nonverbal proximity could indicate the relationship between two people and their level of comfort. For example, in some cultures, a closer distance can be a sign of trust and intimacy, while in others, it could be perceived as an invasion of personal space, and it could also depend on the relationship with the person. A sixth element that we have to mention here are expressions. Verbal vocal expressions such as laughter, sighs, moans, and the changes in the tone of our voice can transmit emotions and attitudes. So let's summarize. Nonverbal communication is an essential component of human interaction since it often communicates way more accurately what we're trying to say than the words themselves. Be aware of nonverbal cues both in yourself and in others. Others can improve communication and interpretation of messages, and this helps us to establish deep connections in our daily interactions with our loved ones. Starting today, let's pay extra attention to our nonverbal communication, especially with our loved ones. So, as a review, let's talk about how communication is a unique gift from our Creator. We've already seen that it's essential to understand that it has two fundamental pillars. One is the nonverbal, the other is the verbal with all the elements involved. Now we're going to learn how communication as a human connection shows that it's a gift that we should use well. Let's move on to the second part of the class, communication as connection. It's a wonderful gift, and we use communication as a way of connecting with others. Communication plays a fundamental role in creating and strengthening connections with others. Humans go beyond the transmission of information since it's a way in which we share our ideas, emotions, and experiences. It's what allows us to understand each other on a deeper level. So let's understand and analyze several elements of communication and how these become a tool for interpersonal relationships. Interpersonal relationships tell us a lot about the quality of our communication, and there are many aspects we should take into account for this to be effective. Empathy and understanding will lead us to have and create strong ties and allow us to build trust. Also, sharing knowledge and experiences, resolving conflicts so we can support each other and celebrate our achievements with the people who love us. What do you think if we start with the first one, empathy and understanding? Effective communication with the ingredient of empathy requires the ability to put ourselves in someone else's shoes and see things from their perspective. Sometimes we hear the word empathy so much, but I'm sure you agree with me that talking about empathy is very different from showing it. By actively listening and showing genuine interest in what the other person is communicating, we build bridges of empathy and understanding that strengthen our relationships. It allows us to create strong emotional ties. And that's what we all want. Through communication, we share our emotions, the joys, sadness, worries of life. By freely expressing our emotions and encouraging others to do the same, we create an approach in which emotional connections can flourish, generating deeper and more meaningful ties. As a third aspect, let's talk about building trust that is open and honest communication. Trust grows between people when they feel safe to express their opinions. Being authentic creates fertile ground for mutual trust, which is essential to establish those solid and lasting relationships, even with our children. As a fourth aspect, let's talk about sharing knowledge and experiences through communication. This not only enriches those who participate in the conversation, but it also can open opportunities for growth and development, personal and professional. As a fifth aspect, communication allows us to resolve conflicts. If effective, it is essential to address and resolve conflicts constructively by communicating respectfully and seeking mutually acceptable solutions. It's a back and forth. We can overcome misunderstandings and even iron out some differences, and that goes to strengthen relationships instead of weakening them. That's what we want, to strengthen relationships and not weaken them with poor communication. The sixth aspect is important for us to mention here is that communication allows us to have and give adequate support to others. It allows us to celebrate others' achievements and also support them in times of difficulty. By expressing our appreciation and showing our support, we strengthen the ties of friendship and solidarity that diminish more every day in such a complicated world that we live in. Life is so busy and full of conflict that many find themselves isolated and lonely. Bettering our communication skills can help us form lasting friendships and warm family ties. In summary, communication acts as the bridge that connects people on an emotional and a cognitive level. When approached with empathy, respect, and authenticity, it has the power to enrich our lives, build meaningful relationships, and improve our understanding of the world around us. So, we're understanding how communication as a human connection is very important first in interpersonal relationships. Now, let's talk about how communication affects the work environment. In the work environment, it's essential for the successful operation of any organization, whether it's between colleagues and supervisors or with our clients. Clear and open communication plays a vital role in productivity, collaboration, and creating a work environment that's full of positive energy. Let's talk about some ways in which communication influences this. So let's first talk about communication within teams. Effective communication in work groups is key to collaboration and the achievement of common objectives, clarity of instructions, assignment of tasks. Consistent updates about the project contribute to a seamless workflow. As a second point, let's talk about problem solving. When there's open communication, this facilitates identifying issues and then problem solving. And then employees feel comfortable. By sharing challenges and concerns, the organization can then directly and quickly address the obstacles and find solutions that are effective. As a third point, we can mention constructive feedback. Regular communication of feedback, both positive and constructive, allows employees to understand their strengths. And this is key also to understanding what the areas are that need improvement. So it encourages professional growth and motivation so that better work performance can be achieved. The fourth issue considered effective communication is essential for making informed decisions when sharing relevant information. By listening to different perspectives, the teams can make decisions that are sound and to the benefit of the majority. As a fifth aspect, let's talk about internal communication. It's like when we talk about newsletters, team meetings, emails. All of these means of communication keep employees informed of any changes and updates in the company's objectives and policies. Internal communication creates a sense of belonging and alignment with the vision of the company, but staying organized is the key. A sixth point in this area of ideas is customer service. Communication with customers is crucial to meeting their needs. We always want to keep our customers happy. And communication that is friendly, responsive, and accurate strengthens customer relationships and contributes to a good reputation for the company or the organization. And as a final point, let's talk about conflict management. Communication is key in this aspect also. It's vital to manage conflicts in the work environment. The ability to respectfully disagree and address problems constructively can prevent escalations and maintain a work environment that is harmonious and peaceful. And who doesn't like a work environment like the one that we described? That's an environment we wouldn't mind being in for 8 hours, right? In summary, communication in a work environment not only involves transmitting information, but also implies that we encourage collaboration, mutual understanding, and growth. Strong communication from the top hierarchy to the operational level contributes to a work environment that's productive and satisfactory. So, we've already talked about the first objective of the class, pillars of communication that are verbal and nonverbal. As the second objective of this class, we talk about communication as a human connection and how it is directly affecting our interpersonal relationships and also our work environment. It's important that we analyze communication in all these areas of our lives. Now, a third objective, we're going to talk about how to overcome barriers in communication. This is important to ensure that messages are transmitted effectively and that mutual understanding is achieved. The barriers can arise due to various factors, but identifying and addressing them appropriately is the key to maintaining good communication that is clear and successful. So, here are some common barriers. We'll analyze them and then see how we can overcome each of them. So, there are linguistic and cultural barriers. Linguistic and cultural diversity can make understanding difficult. Of course, to overcome these barriers, it's important to use clear and simple language. Avoid jargon or excessive technical terms and be willing to adapt the message to make sure it's understood by everyone. If you're learning a new language, you know what I'm talking about. And at the same time, it's worth emphasizing this point that with a new language, you not only have to know the new symbols and the pronunciation, but you should learn about the culture and history, among other things, the customs of the people where you're moving to or who you're working with, because sometimes the cultural barriers are right in the same country with the same language, but different cultures. So it's really important that we make sure that we get advice, that we read about the new culture that we're getting to know. For example, in the UK, they speak English just like they do in the US. But in the UK, they say, "Are you all right?" It's like saying, "Hey, how are you?" It's just a polite greeting. But in the United States, if you say, "Hey, are you all right?" it implies that something's wrong. The person may look sick or they're in distress, and you're trying to help. Another example, same language. In the US, we say French fries. In the UK, they say chips. In the US, we say shopping cart. In the UK, they say trolley. And it's still the English language, but it varies depending on where we live. Another barrier is the lack of listening, triggers inattention or distraction. Paying full attention to the speaker and avoiding interruptions helps avoid misunderstandings and shows respect for the communicator. The fourth would be the use of technology. This is a common barrier for certain generations. In this time now, technology is the key to our work, for teachers to communicate with their students, etc. We're in a digital age, but trying to reach out to your audience through electronic devices can create barriers due to a lack of facial expressions and tone of voice. Haven't we all sent an email or a text message that was totally misunderstood by the other person? It's because they couldn't see the nonverbal communication, the signs. Be careful with this. Even with famous emojis or abbreviations such as TTYL, not everyone knows that means talk to you later. So, clarifying the message and avoiding misunderstandings is crucial when communicating on digital platforms. We have to then take things calmly to be able to know well all these concepts that for some are very new, and we want to be able to speak on everyone's level. So here, let's also talk about the very common emotional barriers because intense emotions can make it difficult to communicate effectively. If something upsets us, take a few moments to back away, calm down before communicating, and practice empathy. See things through the other person's lens. We've already mentioned how empathy can help us to address the emotions of others. Avoid reactions that are defensive or full of conflict. This is a very common barrier. Information overload can overwhelm the recipient and make it difficult to retain details that are important. So it's better to prioritize key information and present it in an organized way. When transmitting the information, this helps avoid overload and allows for clearer understanding. And this has been a benefit to many people. Take notes. Make brief notes with the points that you want to communicate. In general, effective communication involves being aware of these barriers that we just mentioned. Take active steps to overcome them. It not only improves understanding, but it also strengthens relationships and avoids unnecessary confusion. Now, let's talk about the fourth objective in this class is that communication, in regards to communication, in the resolution of conflicts. This plays a crucial role in the conflict resolution as it can help address misunderstandings, clarify differences, and find mutual acceptable solutions. Open and effective communication can prevent the escalations of conflicts and promote healthy relationships. Here I'm going to show you how communication is related to conflict resolution. We're going to list them. So the first element is active listening, something that we'll hear repeatedly during this course. Even in these three free courses that you're seeing, active listening is emphasized because being attentive to all the parties involved in the conflict is vital. Listen carefully to all the parties. It only not only shows respect for the perspectives of each other, but it also helps you to fully understand what their concerns are. It's a sign of sincere interest. As a second element, let's talk about the expression of emotions, allowing people to express their emotions and their concerns openly and respectfully. Listening, giving people the floor, let them express themselves. This can release tensions and facilitate a more peaceful environment. It contributes to others being able to resolve conflict. And this involves expressing disagreements in a constructive and respectful manner and avoiding blame and judgment. If you avoid blaming others and judging them, you're on the right path. This will encourage a more productive dialogue and reduce hostility. And as you can see, this covers any field of interpersonal or work relationships. A fourth element is clarification of misunderstanding. Some find it difficult to do this, but in many cases, conflict arises due to misunderstandings. So it's better to ask and clarify points that aren't clear. This will help to rectify the misconceptions. And if you go in that direction, look to find a common ground, then you already have a huge part of the conflict resolved. Totally related to this point is the identification of common interests in conflict resolution. Communication can help discover shared interests between parties in conflict by focusing on what both parties want to achieve. Find solutions that benefit everyone. A sixth element is finding solutions. Collaborative, open communication allows us to discuss possible solutions. And it is by exchanging ideas and working together that the parties can find common ground and agree on acceptable solutions. The last element at this point we'll talk about is commitment and agreement. Once a solution has been discussed and agreed upon, it is so important to formalize the agreement. This has to be done clearly so as to avoid future misunderstandings and set expectations that are clear. When you're speaking of serious conflicts that have to do with money, of course, you have to leave everything in writing. Where there are commercial deals, everyone should also be clear about what is the deal that's being closed on and put a signature on that deal with all the parties present. Ultimately, effective communication and conflict resolution involves showing respect for the opinions and emotions of others and also being willing to listen and be flexible in the search for solutions through open dialogue. Constructively, differences can be overcome and solid relationships built. So let's now talk about the last objective for today's class. It's my favorite part. The importance of self communication, or that internal dialogue that talks to us all through the day. Self communication, also known as self talk or internal dialogue, refers to conversations we have with ourselves constantly. Although it may seem like an abstract concept, it plays a significant role in our daily lives and how we perceive the world around us. Let's analyze some reasons that highlight the importance of this internal dialogue or self communication. We're going to talk about 7 key points in internal dialogue, self knowledge, and self reflection. Self communication is key and it allows us to explore and understand our own emotions, thoughts, and beliefs. Commands that we receive from parents in our childhood directly affect our internal dialogue. We can analyze our actions and decisions, see what contributes to the development of greater self knowledge and personal growth. There are specific tools that we use here at Vimes to try to change and also to manage our emotions that are behind these commands and these limiting beliefs. A command could be, we don't take naps during the day, we work hard. That's for lazy people. But there are countries where people take siestas for 2 hours every day, right? So that's a command within the family arrangement, but not necessarily in the world. These control, in most cases, our internal dialogue. A limiting belief could be, I can't do that. I can't. We limit ourselves. There's a second point. Let's talk about how regulating our emotional internal dialogue can influence how we manage our emotions. When speaking in a reassuring way and positive way to ourselves in times of stress or anxiety, that can help reduce emotional intensity and maintain a more balanced mental state. The third point will be the feeling of self confidence. Positive and supportive self talk can increase confidence and self esteem by reinforcing positive thoughts about our skills and achievements. We're building a solid foundation to be able to face challenges and overcome obstacles during some of our courses, like the one to come, C3 Pool by 7. And these aspects that we're mentioning communication are addressed in the course. The fourth point to mention is this self communication or internal dialogue part is that internal dialogue has to do with decision making. So we dialogue internally about options. If I do this, this will happen. If I do that, that will happen. And possible results. We use our imagination as well. At this point, this can help us to make informed decisions by weighing the pros and the cons. We can reach more rational choices aligned with our objectives because we're talking about the imagination. We can use it to imagine a result immediately. And then we should do a deeper investigation about all the elements that are involved in the decision that we're about to make. This is how you're going to be able to make decisions aligned with your objectives, such as the fifth aspect, reducing negative thoughts. Self talk can be a tool to address negative or self critical thinking patterns that, as we already mentioned, can come from commands and limiting beliefs that we learned in our childhood. Some limiting beliefs could come from parents constantly comparing us to others or telling us we can't do certain things because we're not smart enough. We should start questioning those beliefs and replacing them with more realistic and positive perspectives that can help improve our mental health. The sixth point is the establishment of objectives. Self communication can be an effective way to establish and maintain focus on personal and professional goals. Talking internally about what we want to achieve and how we plan to achieve it will increase our motivation. Our determination will make us passionate and focused on what we want to achieve. And as a last point, we talk about learning and growth by analyzing our experiences and reflecting on what we have learned. We can use internal dialogue as a tool for continuous growth. This self assessment allows us to identify areas we want to improve in. In summary, self communication or internal dialogue influences how we perceive ourselves, how we face problems and challenges, and how we relate to the world. This is directly related to how you talk to yourself and how you talk to others. Practicing that positive and constructive self talk has a profound effect on our mental health, our self confidence, and general well being. And it's the key to having successful communication with others. Well, with the closing of this first class, our appetite is whet for class number 2, right? The next class will be who's in control? So I leave you that question because it's the topic of the next class. Please remember to like and subscribe. Click on that notification bell. Be a well being multiplier by sharing this video with others. We look forward to seeing you in the next videos. Bye now.